Hello, 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 and I have got some uncommon stories, experiences to share with you. And I'm sharing these because they are uncommon, and I encountered the angels 3 times in my life. And I'm not talking about clouds in the sky or things like that. I'm talking about angels, shining robes, glorious. Twice when I was a child, and the 3rd time when I was a paratrooper in the Army. The latter 2 times they saved my life. The first time I think they saved my brother's life. But I'm going to tell you these stories, and I'll give you a little bit of the events that led up to these events, the circumstances, and I'm going to go into detail on, as much as I can, on how they appeared and acted. And I'm going to try to let my eyes be your eyes, because these are uncommon experiences. And I've said it before. One of my life's treasures is this first one I'm going to share with you. Definitely a life treasure that I never forgot since, and I've told everybody about it. I said I would tell people about it, and sometimes I think that's why the one these angels serve allowed this to happen, because he knew I would tell people about it. And, it might encourage somebody, who knows, do some good somewhere. Now, I'm going to tell you, I told these stories 12 years ago on YouTube, and I can't even find them. I mean, one of them, this one I'm going to tell you, got, 250,000 views. And a lot of comments, mostly positive. But things on YouTube, they're there, then they sink down into the murky depths of wherever things go. They just disappear. And there's nothing wrong with retelling these stories. I mean, from a biblical perspective, or anything, it's just, the stories in the Bible have been retold over and over. And it's my testimony, and I'm sharing it with you again. And maybe it'll reach somebody new. And if it reaches anybody on my current YouTube channel, hello. I have a YouTube channel, and this is kind of my little home stage for it. I make candles. I like candlelight. I'm more comfortable indoors with this than outdoors. So it is what it is. All right, I'll get to this one. This happened when I was like 5 years old, and we lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time. My mom, my dad, myself, and my 3 brothers. And I was the 3rd child. And so my father liked to go up to the Sandia Mountains, which is north of Albuquerque. And he loved to go up there and walk around in the mountains and look for turquoise or different rocks. He collected rocks, and he tried to make jewelry. He did make jewelry out of them. Well, he took us all up there once, and just to put it in perspective, here's a picture of us around that time, probably the same, I think it was the same car. So that's my mom and dad and me and my brothers. And a picture off a long time ago. But I remember it like yesterday, because I said to myself that day I would never forget this, and I would tell people about it my entire life and carry it with me as my treasure. And I have, and I've written it down years ago in detail, and I've told this story to people that I know or meet and have the occasion, we're talking, and I give them my story of the angels, and I have a lot of other stories. And I told it on YouTube 12 years ago. Good luck finding it. I can't even find it. It had 250,000 views, and I can't find it. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to tell my 3 encounters with the angels on this channel. And if this works, I've got a lot of other stories to tell. All kinds of stories, to tell of God's work in my life, of mysterious things, of ghostly things, of scary things, stories of my Army years, all kinds of stories. A lot of paranormal stuff. So my father took us up into the Sandia mountains, all of us, to have a picnic by a stream side. My brother and I wandered upstream. We'll say my mom and dad and my two brothers were where the car was, about maybe 200 yards that way, within sight. And my brother and I wandered up the stream, and there was no other people around. It was just us there at this site. And my dad was trying to get a barbecue going with coals, and he couldn't get them lit for some reason. Couldn't get them started. And my younger brother and I were playing with sticks, you know, looking down this stream bank. It was a pretty big sized stream. I wouldn't call it a river, you know, it wasn't that big. It was a large stream. And there was a muddy bank and a like flat grassy area, then a muddy bank that dropped into the water. You could see little guppies and minnows and stuff. And we were like playing around like little kids do with sticks, you know, in wonderment. You know, of these little creatures in the water, you know, enjoying ourselves. Suddenly, my younger brother, who was on this side of me, leaned too far over and tumbled right in, fell right headfirst into the water. Splash! And he started yelling bloody murder, like screaming out for mom. It wasn't like he was getting swept away by the current, but it was kind of deep there. And he wasn't very old, maybe 3 or 4, and my mom came running in a sprint. I mean, she was about 30 years old at this point, and she passed away 2 years ago. Gone on to be with the Lord. But she come running in a sprint, because I remember, and she jumped right like an athlete into the water and grabbed him out of the water, got out of the creek, and admonished me to stay away from the stream's edge. And I'm just standing there like I wasn't, you know, I'm innocent. And she went back to the car, and my dad was standing there, I remember, looking down there, and she was upset with him because he didn't come running. He just kind of stood there like with a spatula by the grill going, huh? And they got into a little bit of an argument. They didn't argue much, my parents. But I recall this day they were having just a little bit of a disagreement. So I'm standing there here's the angel part. I'm standing by the stream bed where she left me. I'd say 100, 200 yards, about 200 yards. So up from her upstream. Stream's coming this way. And I look up the stream, and I saw these 2 glorious men, quite clearly, in shining, long shining white robes, standing in a stream suddenly, not far, to say maybe 25 feet, 30 feet away from me, upstream, and they're standing in the stream, and they're standing side by side, and they're both just looking down at me, you know, and they're making eye contact with me, and they're just, both of them are smiling at me. And they were about as tall as the trees. I'll describe their countenance because it was definitely otherworldly beautiful. They were about as tall as the trees, and they weren't, I'm not talking giant trees. These guys were about 25 feet tall, 25 feet tall. And they were both standing in the water, and their gowns were white, like long white robes. And there wasn't a wrinkle or a blemish or a spot on these robes. I mean, the robes looked so radiantly pure white because I don't think they were a pure white. They were just pure. There was no wrinkle, nothing. I mean, their whole visage was flawless. And one had like a cloth belt, like a sash, like a belt of green around his waist, tied in the middle and hung down a bit. And the other one had a sash of brown around his waist. So one had a sash of green, one a sash of brown. They were both the same height. They both were very powerfully built. I mean, broad-shouldered, narrow waist, mighty looking, but not definitely looked very friendly towards me. They had shoulder-length hair. One was blonde, the other one was light brown. I don't recall that they had any facial hair. They didn't have a beard or anything. Might have been a mustache, but I don't think so. I don't think they had any facial hair. They were looking at me with a twinkle in their eyes. I think their eyes were blue, but I can't be sure of that, honestly. I know they had a twinkle, like a spark. And here's the thing, the look in their eyes portrayed love, familiarity, like they knew me. They knew me well, I got the feeling. And there was humor, definitely a very good but lively sense of humor in those eyes. That they were both staring down at me with this kind of a look, like a slight grin on their face, like looking at me as a little tot, 5-year-old standing there looking up at them like, wow. And they're looking down at me like, looked like they were about ready to start laughing, but they didn't. They didn't say anything. Their complexion was, they're Caucasian in appearance. Not saying it, but that's how they appeared. They looked like Vikings, kind of. Stereotypical. They had like a rosy, glow. They looked like they were in the prime of health. They weren't marble gray or white or ghostly white or gray. They looked like living men, but extremely healthy, extremely strong, very tall, and full of very, very good humor and love. And what else is there to say about them? They had a radiance about them. They were quite clear. The vision of them was very defined, as clear as if you have 20/20 vision and you're looking at somebody right now. That's how they appeared. It wasn't misty or shadowy, hazy. They were very clearly defined and staring at me with a big smile on their face. And I swear it looked like they knew me. And they very probably did. Might have been my guardian angel or my brother's guardian angel. I don't know. Makes sense. But they look really great. They look like the kind of company you want to be in. Seriously. You set all this world's evil and all the things of this world aside. I could hit the mega millions, win a couple of $1 billion, and that money wouldn't buy what I experienced that day as a 5-year-old. You can't buy this. And I think that God allowed this to happen to me, maybe partially at least, because He knew I would tell of it. That He knew that I would tell the word and let you know that God's angels are real and they work for God. I don't worship angels. I don't spend a lot of time on angels, but they're part of our heavenly family, and I do appreciate them and their work. God created them too. Just like He created us. They're kind of the same family, a little bit different species, my understanding is, but we'll all find out. And I have a feeling that's one fine day I'm going to meet at least one of these two again. And I think my brother will too, because they appeared after he fell in the river, 2 of them. Is there anything else? I just wanted to share this with you, to let you know we don't see them every day, and that's why I'm sharing it here with you. Because my treasure is your treasure. God's treasure shared with me, I'm sharing it with you. This channel is not monetized. I have no reason to be making this stuff up. I just wanted to let you know what I experienced. And they looked glorious. It was otherworldly. I knew even at that age, it was something, an otherworldly realm beauty. And it is a whole different level. And so keep the faith and know who they work for. So how did this end? I looked over that way and yelled to my mom, come up here, come look, see. And she wouldn't listen to me. And when I looked back, they were gone. And my heart sank because I wished I'd never took my eyes off them. But that my beautiful little treasure was gone. And it wasn't long after that, my mom called me and told me to come to the car. We were leaving. And they couldn't get the barbecue started, and we all loaded up in the car. My mom and dad were not really arguing, but they weren't in the most pleasant mood. And I'm in the back seat of this station wagon. I'm telling my mom what I saw. And she didn't believe me. And I felt rejected. And I felt rejected. I sat back and I said, well, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. I remember saying this to myself or thinking it. I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And it's going to be my little treasure to carry with me. And I'm going to share it with people. And I remember thinking those thoughts. And I'm sharing it with you now. And I've got 2 more stories of God's angels. Both times they weren't in shining white robes, but they were men that appeared out of nowhere, saved my life, and then disappeared. Once again down the road as a little older as a child, and once in the army. And actually it could even be a third time, because another time in the army I had a guy show up out of nowhere and save my life in an impending helicopter crash. I've got a lot of stories, so we'll see how this goes. I'm going to tell the 3 angel stories. That's the name of my YouTube channel. I can't even find my original post on YouTube. So I'm retelling these. This time I'm naming it I'm thinking that's for 3 encounters with God's angels. Because they were of God. Okay? And that's that. And I've experienced darker things. These were unfallen angels. And then I got other darker stories I am not going to mix here now with this. So that's it. We'll see how this goes. Take care. Yeah, I've got to wear a hat because these candles cast a shadow on top of my head. So this is my setup. All right, take care.